They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend it with us. It's going to be worth your while. Usually I say we promise, and we're going to promise this time too, because I think it's for real. Hopefully you're listening on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at BWPod on Twitter, or go to thebenchwarmers.com, our official website, Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. This is show number 55. It's season 2, episode 5. And we have a lot to talk about. The NBA season is done, sort of, kind of, not really, almost. And we're going to talk a little bit about this wacky play-in scenario. We have some interesting questions, and we'll try to help you understand it because it took us a while, and we do this semi-professionally. We're going to bring a NFL game that we usually save for football. We're going to translate it over into NBA speak. It's called Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break. It's going to be the NBA playoff edition, so it's going to be kind of a true-false predictive segment, and we're going to throw some ideas at each other and see where they land. 2021 Hall of Fame inductees, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant. We have a lot to talk about there. But first, we have to talk a little bit about the NFL. We have a website spotlight. We did our rankings, the top 16 teams. Jose and I differed wildly on a couple of teams, and we're going to go through that in a little bit. But even before that, Jose, the NFL schedule was released, and I couldn't. It was very telling to me that I don't know. I found it sort of funny in a way that it was a show about what we're going to watch. Like, I was watching a show about what I was going to watch, and I was more interested in watching the show about something I'm going to see in the future more than any other sport that was on TV. And it just goes to show the strength and popularity of NFL is just a juggernaut, and it's not even close.
Yeah, it's crazy. The NFL has just mastered making everything an event. You know, whether it's free agent, the league year starts and the free agents can talk, or the draft, or the schedule being released, and week 1 through all the way through week 18 now. Yep. So yeah, it's just amazing. I don't know what they did or when this shifted, because I feel like when you and I were much younger, football wasn't what it is now, and I'm not sure when it shifted, but somewhere along the way they made some good decisions, and now football. I said this to you just joking, like they could literally fart on air and do nothing else, and 100 million people tune in. That, like, nothing they do doesn't get millions of viewers. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and they used to hold the draft in like hotel conference rooms. I mean, it was like, an insurance salesman convention. You're just like, what's going on in there? Like, the NFL draft. All right, okay, cool. Now it's like you have, celebrities, singers, rock stars. There's movie events. They're singing the national anthem, and it's this gigantic, ridiculous thing it's even a little over the top, I think. But the schedule release is now one of those things. I mean, it's just a breeding ground for excitement and vibrancy. And although I have to say, week 1, right off the bat, right out of the gate, maybe this is my inherent Cowboys love-hate bias, but the Cowboys-Buccaneers on opening night is just, I cringed when I saw that. And I think that it's a little too much of a ratings grab, and I think that it's bad for a lot of reasons, because the Buccaneers they're the defending champions. They're the best team in the league as of this moment. And the Cowboys didn't even make the playoffs. Dak Prescott was injured, fine, but yes, they're popular. People love to hate them and love to love them. But, I mean, it's not good for the Buccaneers, because if they lose, it's going to be an embarrassment. If they win, it's going to be like, well, yeah, you're the champs. You're supposed to win. If the Cowboys lose, the referendum that we're going to have on the Dallas Cowboys the second day of the season is going to be so ridiculously over the top that it's going to be a nightmare. And I really think that The best game of week 1 that I saw was Browns at the Chiefs by far. I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, Browns and Chiefs is one that kind of slipped by me. I looked at the Steelers versus the Bills. I also liked
Steelers Bill was 2 for me. I think
also,
that's the second best.
As far as storylines, I know this is not the sexiest game, but storylines.
Yeah.
Jets versus Panthers. I thought, with the Sam Darnold trade.
Yeah, Sam Darnold retribution.
I thought that was kind of like a sneaky, just like matchup for week 1. As far as I don't think it would be embarrassing if the Bucs lost to the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys, they should be better than they were last year, and they were a bad team last season. I do agree with you, though. It doesn't feel like a marquee game to start the year. I don't see how it could be the NFL doesn't have to do ratings grabs. Right. It could be anything. It could have been the Bucs against the Jets, and everyone's gonna watch. So I don't.
Maybe not the Jags Texans though on week 1.
Okay,
that would be bad. I think the sneaky good game of week 1 actually I think is going to be Seahawks at the Colts. That one I think is going to be that's sneaky good. But going on in the season, I don't know if there was any other things that stood out to you. I mean, obviously, the Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 4. I mean, that's going to be a monster of a ratings. I'm glad they at least were smart enough to put that on Sunday night.
Yeah, I look at the Chargers versus the Chiefs in week 3. I know it's not necessarily on paper it doesn't look that exciting, but I'm really curious to see what kind of step forward the Chargers take this year. And it'll be kind of one of their first big tests. They get the Cowboys, and I'm trying to see who the other team was. They get the Cowboys, I think, in week 2. And then in week 1, they have a pretty winnable game. And so I'm looking at they get the Washington football team in week 1. So they could, in theory, go into week 3 with a 2-0 record going to the Chiefs. I thought that was interesting. And then just a humorous one, the Texans at the Cardinals in week 7, just because of the trade. It's like if you ever have an ex-girlfriend who you haven't seen her in a while, and then when you see her, she looks busted, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I'm not with her anymore. That's what DeAndre Hopkins is going to be feeling when he sees the Texans coming to Arizona.
You're like, oh, how did I get so lucky? Wow, we really messed that up. I
mean,
think
the Bills at the Chiefs in week 5 also.
So week 5, I also just looked at Browns Chargers. I think is another one. I think the Chargers are going to be an interesting. They're a very interesting team because it seems like they could skyrocket up the ladder and just be a crazy good playoff team, or they could just plummet back down to earth and just be terrible again.
Yeah, not every team takes that step forward. It all looks poised, and then they're going to take the step forward, and they just don't. It happens all the time. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of good games on the docket. I mean, it's a lot of your 49ers and the Eagles in week 2, I think should be interesting. I don't think that it's going to be quite as juicy because I don't expect Trey Lance to be there yet, or at least starting yet. I mean, who knows? Jimmy Garoppolo he's made of glass, so maybe he might get injured sooner than later. But
I was actually looking forward to that game just because I feel like I want the 49ers to get off to a good start. You get the Lions in week 1, and you get the Eagles in week 2. As people will see from our rankings, actually the Eagles didn't make our rankings, so they're not top 16. But I just don't think the Eagles are going to be very good this year. And I want that win. I want that win right away, early in the season, to start racking up wins, because it's going to be a very difficult division.
Yeah, and speaking of those rankings, that leads us to our next topic. We decided to do kind of a collaborative effort separately, which I know sounds sort of paradoxical, but we decided to rank the top 16 teams in the NFL for going into this season according to us. We decided the top 16 because no one really, unless it's your team, I feel like no one really cares about the bottom half of the league. It's just kind of, who it is. But the top 16 were interesting, and we separately made our own list, 1 through 32, of who we thought. So we have on our website, thebenchwarmers.com, we have a list of the kind of combined rankings of the teams in the top 16. And Jose, you were smart enough to not only rank them in the collaborative sense, but you also were split them up in between to see where the individual rankings were and how we came to kind of the average of the two, which I applaud you for.
Thank you.
Smart. It's very smart. If you have an L and a J, hopefully you can figure out who's who between Lou and Jose. I think that should be, if you have any concept or have listened to any 15 seconds of the show, you should probably know who's who by now.
Can I tell you that I debated that for at least 5 minutes? Like, should I just literally type out Lou and Jose for each of these? But then at the end, it just felt like it looked so stupid to have Lou, Jose, Lou, Jose, Lou, Jose throughout this. So I was like, we're just gonna go L and J and hope that people get it.
I think that's fine, considering our names are plastered all over this website in a myriad of places for good reason, because it's a good website that we've come up with. So, good work doing that. And so I'll just read these through and we can kind of dice them up as we go. So 1 through 16, we have Bucks, Chiefs, Browns at 3, Bills at 4, Packers at 5, Rams at 6, Seahawks at 7, 49ers at 8, Cardinals at 9, Steelers at 10, Colts 11, Ravens 12, Chargers 13, Cowboys 14, Falcons 15, and Titans 16.
Can I throw in some clarifications here? Because I have the actual scoring of how we put this together. So the Packers and Rams are actually tied, right? You ranked the Packers 7th, I ranked them 3rd. You ranked the Rams 4th, and I ranked them 6th. So 4 plus 6 equals 10. 7 plus 3 equals 10. They're both. It's just I had to pick one to go on top, and so I just picked the Packers. And you'll notice the same thing. The 49ers, Cardinals, Steelers, and Colts, we all have tied. I just, being a 49ers fan, I just put the 49ers at the top.
Well, yeah.
And I was like, I'll take the tiebreaker. And but no, we're splitting hairs with those teams. So that's what it boils down to. We think we rank a lot of these teams pretty similarly. And I think we're looking at you're looking at the Rams and the Packers. They probably are in around the same tier. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Some of these teams getting broken into tiers, because clearly the Chiefs and the Bucs are by themselves.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too that this is very, very premature, and a lot happened between now and the start of the season. But this is essentially going under the assumptions. The assumptions were that the teams are basically going to be mostly what they are right now, and everyone is going to be healthy. I think that's important. Yep. Obviously, injuries dictate a lot of how this plays out, but if all things being equal, this is how they should line up for us.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and of course, Aaron Rodgers still being in Green Bay.
Well, that's the big question mark. And I think that while I didn't think necessarily that I was thinking Rodgers, because I ranked the Packers 7th and you had them 3rd. And, I think that maybe that's a kind of a controversial ranking by me, but I did think Aaron Rodgers was going to be there, but I couldn't take Aaron off because if Aaron is not on the team and it's Jordan Love starting or who they signed, Marcus Mariota, they would be.
I missed that.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that that's who it was.
Huh?
Then the Packers would be down there. I mean, they'd be right there with the Texans as far as just god awful teams that would be useless to this list, but. Even with Aaron Rodgers being there, it just struck me as he's going to be disgruntled, and I don't think it's going to be sort of that vengeful, spiteful Rodgers that we saw last year that won him the MVP after the Jordan Love pick. It feels a little more toxic now with everything that's been going on.
Depressed Aaron Rodgers.
I think he could just sit out. I don't think that I would not surprise me if he's on the team and not starting week 1.
Well, I mean I think that would surprise me. I could see him retiring, but I mean I just don't like. I don't like it. I don't think you're allowed to not play. Like I'm not sure how that works.
There's a penalty.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not like they're going to beat you up or something. Yeah. There's a penalty you have to pay. By the way, just to clarify, the Packers signed Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles. Okay, so works. Marcus Mariota.
Actually works.
Same guy. Yes.
But yeah, no, it is fair to wonder, and if you look at the write-up that we have for the Packers, it is fair to wonder what impact. Let's say he does start and everything is and he's there, and what impact does this whole offseason have? Look, what like this Aaron Rodgers drama. Last year they were able to withstand it and go 13-3. Uh, it is fair to wonder. It is fair to wonder how this will impact them long term, or not even long term for the season.
And so, I mean, it should be obvious. The Bucks we have at consensus number 1, the Chiefs at number 2. I mean, those things that kind of speaks for itself. The Browns is where we start to differ. I had the Browns 3, and I'm hoping that I'm not getting too bandwagony here, but it feels like this should be. I mean, this is going to be the best that they're going to be. Is this upcoming season? They have Myles Garrett, who's a monster. They signed Jadeveon Clowney. They presumably will have Odell Beckham back and Jarvis Landry and that backfield. And Baker is playing for his life, basically. I mean, I think this is his prove it year. So, a second year in under Stefanski, I think that they really should be the third best team in the league if they can keep it all together and stay healthy.
I thought it was questionable that we ranked them ahead of the Bills. Like collectively, I had the Packers 3, and I put the Bills 4 and the Browns 5. I felt like, looking at the Bills, like, were we disrespecting them a little bit by claiming that they're the third best team in the AFC and not the second best team? Because clearly the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. That's the only thing that stood out to me. Because other than that, there's no other team that I would say is clearly better than the Browns. And I can't even say the Bills are clearly better than the Browns, but I thought that the Bills deserved to be ranked higher than them.
I just felt like the Bills, to me, while Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs looks like a match made in heaven, it just felt like they're just so one-dimensional. They had no running game. I mean, they just had no. You can't be a pass-only team going into the playoffs. You just can't. And
and they didn't really address the running game this offseason. And honestly, if you think about it, the only help that they got for Josh Allen is Emmanuel Sanders, and he's a good player, but he's 34 years old. They probably should have gotten a little bit more offensive help for them.
Yeah, and I think they can. I mean, they should still look into some sort of free agent running backs. That they need help with that backfield, and it's a problem. I mean, it's an obvious weakness that if I can see sitting here, you can rest assured defensive coordinators are going to find out. The Packers at 5, I feel like we kind of touched on that a little bit. It's sort of it's a lot of it's Aaron Rodgers dependent, and I think that there's going to be a regression. I just don't think that the Packers can do, it seemed like, especially after that NFC Championship, Aaron Rodgers with that, remember the whole 8-yard line where everyone thought that he should have ran passed and complete, and then afterwards, I mean, he just looked despondent in that press conference, and he talked about not knowing what his future is going to be, and it felt sort of ominous in a way, and that kind of crushing defeat. I mean, we saw it with the Bills in the 90s. After a while, it starts becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're like, well, we're just not going to win. You just start feeling that way. I don't think Rodgers would necessarily feel that way, but the rest of the team might. They're like, how many times are we going to get right on the crest of the mountaintop and then fall down all the way to the bottom?
And get blown out. Like it's one thing to lose. I mean, I'm not sure if it's better to lose a close game or not, but it's one thing to lose close. Hey, we were right there. Like almost like the Browns last year losing. Who did they lose to? Was it the Chiefs?
The Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs. Where it was pretty close, and they probably could have an argument to have won that game. So you go into the offseason feeling kind of good. Where the last 2 off seasons for the Packers, the 49ers a couple years ago destroyed them in the NFC Championship game. And then last year, I guess they weren't destroyed, but it felt like pretty lopsided. It felt like there was never really a time where you thought the Packers were going to win that game. So, maybe there is something to that.
Yeah, and the Browns too. I mean, they have a score to settle. I mean, Chad Henne beat them. It wasn't even like it was Patrick Mahomes. And they beat themselves with that goofy fumble out of the end zone. But so 6. I think the Rams are very interesting, and this might be a little premature too, because I had them at 4, and I think that they seem like they're a team that is. I mean, they made the playoffs last year with Jared Goff with 9 fingers, and they to my mind they upgraded significantly with Stafford, who is a much more talented quarterback. I think that the Rams, if they can put it all together and keep that defense, playing at the level they're capable of playing at, they're going to be a dangerous team to face.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I mean, I had them at 6, but we're 4-6. It's really not that far off. I'm looking at the Rams as a team that is they could easily leapfrog the Packers and be kind of that team that challenges the Bucks, because there's not really that clear team. And the Rams, it's all in front of them right now. They got the quarterback. They've got elite passing options. They've got a growing running game. They've got an elite defense. They should be able to win 12 games this year in that area or in that ballpark. I would say 11 to 13 games should not be out of the question for them.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, there is sort of a hang up with our rankings in that we have 6, 7, 8, 9 is the entire NFC West.
Yeah, that's probably not possible.
Right. It just makes, it because those teams are so good, you figure they're going to beat up on each other and sort of everything is going to sink a little bit.
Well, I will say this. The one area that we were really different in, because if you look at our rankings for the Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, and Cardinals, for 3 of the 4, we were pretty close. The big difference really was the 49ers, where you had them ranked at 12. I had them ranked at 7. I think part of it is me looking at them almost like the opposite. Like, you have a hate-love relationship with the Cowboys, and I guess I have a love-love relationship with the 49ers. So, because it just, I think I'm looking at the glass half full, where, hey, they were injured last year. Everything kind of didn't go right. I think Trey Lance is at least as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, if not better. So, why shouldn't the 49ers be a top 10 team? And that's kind of what, not necessarily top 5, right? Just in that 5 to 10 range. But I could also see the other way. I can, and it could easily be that this is not just about the injuries that happened last year. The 49ers just had a chance to win the Super Bowl. It happens all the time where a team gets good, has a chance to win the Super Bowl, didn't win, and then never really recovers. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and and to be fair, I think my thinking through this with the Niners is that Trey Lance is not going to be ready to start. He's still a rookie. He's going to need time to adapt and adjust. And you still have Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo he's good but not great, and his biggest weakness is his ability not to stay healthy. I mean, that's a problem. So if you have to force Trey Lance in there earlier than he's ready for, I mean, this team could tumble very, very quickly, despite having probably the smartest coach in the league, or one of the top 3 smartest coaches in the league, and a great running game and great weapons on both sides of the ball. Just if that cornerstone piece isn't right, it's not going to happen, especially in a division that competitive. And I
think that's the main thing, right? When we're looking at this division, we both a few weeks ago declared this the best division in football, and in our rankings, without even conferring with each other, bore that out. And there's no room for error in this division. Like, there's not, you can't get injured, you can't have bad games. Like, this is going to be down to the wire. I think the Rams are the clear favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised if either of these teams ended up winning the division. That's how good it is. And so I think that range from 12 to 7 is probably actually correct.
Yeah.
With, hey, you have a couple wrong bounces, you do a couple things wrong, you win 11 games or you win 9 games. That's where we are in this division.
And it does seem like Kyle Shanahan just has the Rams number somehow. I don't have the stats in front of me to verify that, but I just feel like it seems as though the 49ers are constantly beating the Rams, even though the Rams should probably be, even with they have Chris Beathard last year, and I think they beat the Rams.
CJ Beathard, yeah.
CJ Beathard, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just moving along down the list here. I one of the ones that stood out to me as well, because it was weird. Last year, I was the one who was all high on the Colts. I was like, Colts, yep. Dark horse sleeper, dark horse Super Bowl contender. Yep. And then this year, Lou comes out, has them ranked 6th.
Yeah.
And I had them ranked 13th. We both have them in the playoff conversation, so it's not like I think we're both thinking they're going to be a good team, but you're thinking they're going to be borderline elite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did not think that Phillip Rivers had much left in the tank at all. And honestly, in the second half of his career, he's not been great. So that kind of just, I wasn't a believer last year. But you saw the pieces, with T.Y. Hilton coming back. You have Michael Pittman on another year. You have Quentin Nelson, who was an all-pro in his rookie year, blocking. Now you have a guy like Carson Wentz, who is with the one guy who made him MVP level talent in Frank Reich. And presumably he's going to be healthy. He hasn't really played much, and you have to think that he's got something to prove. And that after getting kind of ousted from Philly so unceremoniously, he and his ceiling to me, maybe not in a career trajectory, but in terms of what Phillip Rivers' ceiling was last year and what Carson Wentz's ceiling is this year, it's not even close. Carson Wentz's ceiling is the Super Bowl this year with a team that's surrounding him right now.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I completely agree with that. My ranking of 13 was based on the same person, Carson Wentz. Where I'm not sure. I'm worried that the Eagles seemed to play better on offense when Carson Wentz was out of the game. When Jalen Hurts came in and Carson Wentz was out, it felt that even though they were only 1-3 in those games, so the wins didn't necessarily translate, but it felt like the offense was much better. And it makes me worried that this is not, like, what we saw was not an Eagles problem last year. It was a Carson Wentz problem.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true, but I'm very, very worried that what we saw, I just don't know. We saw Derek Carr a few years ago have an MVP type season, get injured, and never quite be that same player again.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if we're seeing Carson Wentz kind of go down that same road. And so it's hard for me to really have confidence. They have a great roster, but I need to see Carson Wentz kind of exercise the demons from last year.
Yeah, I was definitely going glass half full on that one. And hopefully Carson Wentz doesn't turn out to be Mr. Glass. The Ravens, I feel like the Ravens is kind of it's the same old story. It's like high floor, low ceiling. It's like it just feels like they remind me of the Milwaukee Bucks of the NFL. It's just they have a couple, they have one really talented guy and then some other guys, And that's
honestly,
about
it. I have questions about Lamar Jackson's talent. I know he's an amazing athlete, but I have questions about his accuracy down the field, and I don't have numbers in front of me. I know what I was watching last year, and
he throws to Mark Andrews, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I've seen him airmail a bunch of deep balls, and I just worry that because I think they know that they have to change this year, right? They know they can't be, hey, we're just going to run it 800 times and we're gonna outrun everyone. They can't do that. Everyone figured it out last year and stopped them from doing that. Not everyone, but slowed them down at least from doing that. I'm worried.
What's that?
Sorry? No, it's like I'm worried that maybe Lamar Jackson doesn't have the ability to accurately target wide receivers outside the hash marks. And if that's where his limitation is, it's going to be easy. It's going to become easier and easier to game plan against him. So I need to see the offense take another step forward.
I mean, hopefully with the addition of Sammy Watkins and Rashad Bateman. Yeah. Hopefully that'll help give him some actual targets to throw to down the field. No offense to Hollywood Johnson out there, but he's not a number one.
He may not be a number one, but I've seen Hollywood Brown wide open on multiple plays and get just like, I was like, come on, man! Like I literally just scream as just hit this guy with the pass. Yeah. Maybe it is that he's not, maybe he's just not that talented. Maybe he needs maybe Lamar Jackson needs more of a possession receiver and not necessarily a downfield guy. But I've seen when you get behind the defense, the quarterback got to put it there, and he's not putting it there. That's
true. 13, we had the Chargers as our consensus rank. And the Chargers, I think we kind of feel the same way. It's a great roster. They have a new coach, and it's just going to boil down to a lot like the Colts. What is Justin Herbert going to do? Is he going to step up or is he going to step back?
Yeah.
And by all accounts, I mean, he has the talent, but now that there's a year of film on him, can he react to the defense reacting to him, So that's kind of, I feel like, our slight trepidation there is what caused the Chargers to fall, a little bit further down this list.
Yeah, you believe in them a little bit more than I do. I think that they're going to be good, and I think they're going to challenge for the playoffs. I just, it's we saw Baker Mayfield take a step back in year 2. We saw Daniel Jones take a step back in year 2. I think Justin Herbert looked better than both of those guys in his rookie year. So
yes,
it's it's not the same thing, but we've seen plenty of players have a good breakout season, and then that next year just kind of come crashing down.
Yeah. I mean, I think Justin Herbert's going to not be one of those guys, but and part of that too is just that he was running for his life a lot last year, and they did address the offensive line a little bit in the offseason, the Chargers, but we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do with that team, especially if they get Derwin James back for more than 10 minutes this season. That'd be nice too.
Yeah.
Give him some help on the defensive side. 14, we had the Cowboys.
Yeah. We're pretty close on them.
Yeah, I feel like the Cowboys, it's sort of a, I'll believe it when I see it. They have where these rankings feel kind of based on a weak division and a lot of talent, and not necessarily a lot of synergy.
Yes to everything you just said there, and I think it's listen, you have them 13, I have them 15. It's not like we're saying these are Super Bowl contenders. We just think, hey, this is a team that probably will make the playoffs because they'll win the division.
I'm actually surprised you didn't have them higher, to be honest, considering our constant Dak Prescott debates where I put him down, you seem to prop him up.
I like Dak Prescott. It's just a lot of really good teams in the NFL right now where it's hard to really rank them ahead of some of these other teams where I guess I also think that if I were to do this list over again, I probably could come up with a different order. It's just it's so close, some of these teams, but I don't know. I look at the Chargers, and I have the Chargers ranked 1 behind the Cowboys. I'm trying to think of who I had at 4. So I had the Cowboys at 15. Who did I have at 14?
You had I don't know if they were on here.
Oh, I had maybe I didn't make it. All right. Well, either way.
We ended up having the Falcons at 15 as our consensus right, and the Falcons are who I had at 14. You had them at 17. The Falcons they just were snake bitten by bad luck last season and just kind of poor play calling, I think, a lot of times. And they went all in with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Now they drafted Kyle Pitts, who's supposed to be, we've been hearing this phrase more and more, but a generational talent. We'll see. If he's even half of what he's touted to be, that offense is going to be frighteningly good.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if the Packers had kind of done what the Falcons did this year. Like if the Packers had done that last year instead of drafting another quarterback, if maybe we would be in a different spot with them. Yeah, I think, listen, they went all in on the Falcons. They should challenge for a playoff spot. I think it's a perfect ranking for them right here, 15.
Yeah, and then we have finally the 16 out of 16. We had the Tennessee Titans. I had them at 20. You had them at 12.
Wow.
Why the high ranking?
Is 12 a high ranking? I felt like they're a playoff team. They've been in the playoffs, I think, the last 3 years, maybe, something like that, 2 or 3 years. They have Derrick Henry, maybe the best running back in the game. They have A.J. Brown, one of the better young wide receivers. Ryan Tannehill is a capable quarterback. They have a decent defense. They should be challenging for the division. I did have the Colts ranked 1 spot behind them, so I think the Colts and the Titans are pretty close. I think the other question is, why do you have them ranked so low?
Well, I think I look at the Titans a lot in the same way that I look at the Ravens. It just feels like their floor is really high, but their ceiling is really low. And it's the Derrick Henry show. I mean, Ryan Tannehill, I know he had great, otherworldly numbers and statistics and however you want to match it up, but he's not a top 10 quarterback. He's just not. And they have a good team, but the best thing that Ryan Tannehill can do is turn around and hand it to the guy in the backfield, and that's it. But just like the Bills, you can only go so far being one-dimensional with passing. You can only be so much and do so much when you're only a run first team and you occasionally have a play action. It just feels to me like they lost Malcolm Butler, or they cut Malcolm Butler, I should say. They didn't lose him. Their defense has been kind of iffy in the last year or so. So it just feels like without a good defense, you can't run the ball. You just can't. You can't. You're going to be playing catch up, and that renders Derrick Henry basically useless.
Yeah, I would agree that I don't think the Titans are the Tannehill's a top 10 quarterback, but I don't think he's
not bad.
He's not so far. He's not like the reason they aren't winning or anything like that. I do agree though, and that's what we have in our note that we placed in our we put a little write up about each of the teams in the top 16, and it's like it seems like they are going to need an elite defense if they want to contend for anything just other than making the playoffs. I think I just had them making the playoffs. That's really what my ranking shows to me. That hey, I think they're one of the top 14 teams in the NFL and should make the postseason.
And then outside of that, I mean, we both had the Dolphins, Vikings, Saints, and Washington football team outside the top 16. I mean, of those teams, who do you think is the highest? Dolphins, Vikings, Saints.
Well, I think
Washington.
I like the Vikings the best. My rankings would say that as well too, but I like the Vikings the best. I don't know. I just have a good feeling about the Vikings this year. Thinking about the potential tumult in Green Bay, a new quarterback in with the Bears. So we don't that there should be, or it's Andy Dalton. So whoever. Then you have the Lions, who are just trash anyway. So it doesn't matter. The Vikings should have a chance to challenge for the division, and they have an established quarterback, established wide receiving core, established running back. Defense should be getting healthier, and they should be much better than the embarrassment they were last year on the field on defense. There's no reason this team shouldn't be a good team. I'm not saying they're going to challenge for the Super Bowl or anything like that, but they should be able to get into the playoffs and maybe even win a game.
Yeah, I think out of that, I might lean towards the Washington football team, honestly. I'm not sure if I have to double check and see if that's actually, I hope I ranked them that way, but it's either the Dolphins or the Washington. But Washington football team, I mean, their defense is going to keep them in games, and it's going to nullify some of what Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to bring on the negative side, where, he can throw for 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions, and sometimes both in the same game. Yeah. So I think that they're going to score more, and they're also going to turn over the ball more. But their defensive line between Sweat and Young, I mean, they're going to be a problem for that. And that NFC East is not good. It's just not good.
Yeah, no, it's certainly the NFC East feels about as wide open as it can be. I could really see, other than the Eagles, I could see a narrative for any team winning that division. I do think it's interesting that we had the Saints. You ranked them 16th. I ranked them 18th. Really, all that happened was that they lost Drew Brees.
Their Hall of Fame.
Well, but was he playing? Yeah, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. But was that Hall of Fame Drew Brees last year, or was last year's Drew Brees just a good quarterback?
He was a better quarterback than either Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill.
You mean Jameis Winston?
Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Bridgewater was the year before. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. It's just, I don't know. We obviously both agreed that it's a big drop off. I was like, wow, we both basically have them out of the playoffs and not close.
Yeah, I mean, Jameis Winston. I mean, if he can put it together, it'll be a shock to I think everyone, including Jameis Winston.
His mom.
But and the Saints. I mean, the Saints talent-wise have talent. Michael Thomas comes back. They have Alvin Kamara, obviously. Taysom Hill, depending on what Sean Payton decides to do with him, is going to be a weapon of sorts. But it's all contingent on how high can that offensive philosophy really take you with Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. I feel like it's just not there.
Last question for you here on this.
Yep.
On the rankings, is there any chance the Texans don't finish as the worst team in football?
No.
Like I'm looking at how did I have them ranked 31? Oh, the Lions had 32. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, how do I not have them in last place? The Texans are going to be so bad this year.
Maybe if Trevor Lawrence decides to sit out the entire year,
I
guess. Or, honestly, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play and Jordan Love is in there, you can almost count on everyone beating up on the Packers because that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But barring those things, it's going to be hard pressed. You're going to be hard pressed. I mean, we might not see Deshaun Watson suit up this year. I mean, even if he settles all this nonsense out of court, I mean, there's still going to be most likely, a suspension based on, conduct detrimental to the league. I mean, we saw Ben Roethlisberger. I think he had 2 accusations years ago, and he was suspended for 4 games, I think.
Yeah, sounds right.
And so, now you have 10 times that amount for Deshaun Watson, and
22.
So
yeah, goodness.
Even if a tenth of them are true, he's still going to be suspended for some game. Proven to be true. I know it's all alleged at this point, but it's kind of hard to believe that all of those things are made up. So even with that, and then even if he is playing, the Texans are bad. They don't have. They have Brandon Cooks and Randall Cobb. I mean, that's what they should do.
Really
is trade.
Yeah,
they should trade Randall Cobb back to the Packers. I've read I think everyone would be happy in that scenario. The Packers should give him a 6th-round pick for Randall Cobb. What are you doing otherwise?
Yeah,
Randall Cobb's not helping you. He's not gonna. Was he gonna help you lose more games?
I didn't even realize he was on the team. Yeah, absolutely. You should do that.
Yeah.
Call him right now. Get that trade happening.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
Yeah, Texans just real bad. Start looking ahead to that 2022 draft. All right,
Do you even have any picks? I'm sorry, I don't want to go too far.
Oh well, we'll save it for next offseason. It doesn't matter is the answer.
Yeah.
All right, so that is our website spotlight. You can go to the benchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z. You can see that it's called the Benchwarmers NFL Big Board. It's our top 16 consensus rankings going into this season. We're still obviously our ways away from the actual season. Maybe we'll redo this again as we get closer to the season.
We definitely will be doing this again.
And it's be interesting to compare and contrast. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I know after June 1st, there's going to be a lot of potential. It's something to do with the salary cap and things change. And I think there's a lot of things that become a lot more viable from a financial standpoint after that. Very, very illustrious date, I might add, which
yes,
that is both of our birthdays for those who don't know us that well. But all right, so that's it. Go to thebenchwarmers.com and check it out. There's a lot of good information, articles there that we've been slowly amassing over the course of the last several weeks. So coming up next, we have to switch gears. It's time to talk NBA. The NBA season is over. We're going to be excited about some NBA playoffs, games that actually mean something to us and the players. So that'll be cool. 2021 Hall of Fame inductees. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. And we're going to play our Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break game. And it's going to be the NBA playoff edition instead of our typical NFL talk. So stick around. We have a lot to get to still. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers Podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. Hopefully, you're following along on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us along. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or simply go to thebenchwarmers.com for all of our news, notes, and information and how to contact us. Thebenchwarmers.com, Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. Big first half of the show. We went over all things NFL. The NFL schedule release came out this last week, and we kind of went through some highlights there. we touched mostly on our website spotlight, which is our Benchwarmerz big board. We ranked the NFL teams. We have consensus rankings from 1 through 16. Go check that out to see where we are similar and different. There's a lot of good information there. Now it's time for, we're going to go around the NBA. The NBA season is over, and that's a good thing for all involved. We can now focus on the playoffs. And actually, we saw this last weekend that the 2021 Hall of Fame inductions were held. And the big names, obviously, were Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Kobe Bryant. Jose, I'm going to start just by asking you a very simple question. If you had to start a team, who would you start your team with? Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, or Kobe Bryant? And I'll give you, the year is 2005.
Well, I think no offense to Kevin Garnett, he's not in this discussion really.
I agree.
It's probably Tim Duncan to me. I mean, Kobe was great throughout his career. I just feel like Tim Duncan was a little bit more consistent. I don't want to say consistent because Kobe was incredibly consistent too. I don't know. I just like what Tim Duncan brings to a team, that he doesn't have to have the ball go through him all the time. I feel like he had a little bit. The end of his career was a little bit more productive as far as wins and losses compared to Kobe.
Yeah, I think if it was a little more modern of a time frame, I would start with Kobe just because it's become a shooters league. But yeah, in that era, like the pre-Steph Curry era, I think Tim Duncan still would have had a monstrous benefit to a team. Now, Kobe would sell more tickets.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Tim I think would help a team more success-wise. And you know, it's just for someone who's so sort of unassuming. And I mean, his nickname was the Big Fundamental. Like, for all of his accolades, listen to this. He was a 5-time NBA champion. He was a 3-time Finals MVP. He was twice the league's most valuable player. He was a 15-time All-Star. He was 10-time All-NBA first team, 8 times All-NBA defensive first team. 7 times, so in 15 years, he was 8 times all-defensive first team and 7 times all-defensive second team.
Wow.
He was Rookie of the Year. I mean, it's hard, you don't think about it it's so easy to forget him because he just didn't make noise. He was just it's almost like he was like Barry Sanders in a way, minus the highlight reel. It's just, he just went to work, did his job, went home, and you just never heard from him after, outside of being on the court.
Yeah, and I think that what actually, now that we just, you're talking about it, I think really what gives Duncan the edge for me is that I feel like if we're talking about building blocks, I'm thinking about some of my son's building toys and stuff. When you have a square, it's so easy to build around it, right? It's just like, boom, like I just put this here. Everything fits nicely with a square. Not so much when you have a circle, right? Or you have a different shape. And I think that's, the square might not be the most exciting shape, but it fits. Everything fits with it. You don't have to go crazy trying to find the chemistry. Who can we fit with this with Tim Duncan? You could literally put anyone around him and he would be the same player. Kobe feels to me like he would still be great, but you actually have to have a specific type of player to fit with Kobe. And that's where I think the difference is as far as building a team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Kobe's accolades, everyone knows by now, but he also 5-time NBA champ, 2-time NBA Finals MVP. I realized Kobe was only MVP of the league once.
Yeah, he got Steve Nash one of those years.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to remember who beat him out, but he was an 18-time All-Star. He's a 4-time All-Star game MVP.
Wow.
11-time first team All-NBA. It's ridiculous, Kobe's accomplishments. But
I was just gonna say it's one thing to have, when you get players in the Hall of Fame, it's great. But like literally with Kobe and Tim Duncan, you're talking potentially 2 top 10, definitely 2 top 20 players, maybe 2 top 15 players. You don't usually have that happen in one class. Like you'll see next year's class, no top 20 players in next year's class.
Yeah, and Tim Duncan, it's interesting to me that he's And Kevin Garnett, for the record, not a slouch either. I mean, Kevin Garnett, he was also one time, he was a 2004 MVP. He was obviously won in '08 with the Celtics, 15-time All-Star. And he was, he was great in his own right. I mean, he spent a lot of years in Minnesota just sort of languishing there and finally got his chance to be on a good team. But Duncan, I mean, if you look at his resume from top to bottom, I mean, you could make a case that he should be, a top 5 NBA player, or at least thought of in that respect. And obviously different eras, breed different kind of players, but in terms of offense, defense, accomplishments, both personal and team accomplishments, I mean, he's got it all. He just didn't promote himself.
Well, he didn't promote himself, but he never really had I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I don't believe he had an elite scoring season. And I think he was maybe around 24 is probably where he topped off. And I think when you look at those top 5 type players, with the exception of Bill Russell, and it depends on if you have him in your top 5. Some people do, some people don't. The 11 championships kind of pushes them in there, I guess. But all the other players are in the high 20s averaging and had ridiculous, just even Kobe had a 35 point per game season. I think that's probably what was missing. And but like you said, though, it's the flash, right? That's what people see, the scoring. So if you're not scoring, it's oh, well, he's not that good. I think you can make an argument for a top 10. I think it'd be tough. It takes a lot to break into the top 5. I'm not sure if there's really an argument for top 5 for him.
Tim Duncan played from 1997 to 2016. I cannot think of one defining highlight from his entire career.
He mastered the big shot. That's what I would say. There's not really one highlight. I always just remember thinking about anytime he would shoot, he would always hit the perfect spot on the backboard, and it would just drop right back in. I'm just how. It doesn't even look like it's a good shot, and you're oh, it just knows his geometry really, really well. I guess I don't know.
But any other of these career guys, I mean, Kobe. I mean, think of all the highlights you think of. You think of the 81-point game. You think of him, walking back out on a torn Achilles to shoot his 2 free throws. You think of, I mean, there's so many shots. That even celebrating with Shaq over in those championship years with the Lakers. And Duncan, has as many accolades as Kobe does, and somehow it just all is kind of vanilla. I think
it's the same thing that LeBron's kind of facing as far as when he's compared against guards. Tim Duncan's not a guard. He's not going to be knocking down 18-foot shots to win the game. That's not what he does. He gets the game-winning rebound or the game-winning block shot, or makes the game-winning pass, or maybe a close shot, or something like that. But he's not a guard, so we get excited by guard play, I think, and that's probably what's really different as well.
Yeah. Also interesting that Kevin Garnett did not mention Ray Allen even a little bit in his speech. Apparently, that's just going to take that to the grave. I guess those guys are just not going to get along for the rest of time. But yeah, I mean, congratulations, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Kobe. Obviously, I mean, I wish we could. I mean, obviously, I wish he was alive for a lot of reasons. But just to see what his Hall of Fame speech would have been like, I wonder if he would have, taken some cues from Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech, and kind of just had his hit list of burns that he never let go of. I don't know. I would just be so interested to see what he would have said in his Hall of Fame speech, but. We will never know. But, okay, so that's the 2021 Hall of Fame inductees. We also have the season-ending NBA leaders that I believe, Jose, you have all of you in front of you are the stats gurus.
We'll go ahead and run through some season-ending information for all your information. Steph Curry led the league in points, 32 points per game. Just want to point out he had 337 three-pointers made this season, and second place was Buddy Hield with 282.
Steph also joins only Michael Jordan to be the only other 33-year-old to win the scoring title.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Clint Capella, just in case you don't remember, he's on the Atlanta Hawks.
Used to be
14
on the Houston Rockets
Yep.
and then disappeared and resurfaced with the Hawks. Yes.
It was a mystery on the Benchwarmers podcast. We're like, what the heck happened to Clint Capella? No,
It's like Bermuda Triangle.
14.3 rebounds per game. Russell Westbrook of the Wizards, 11.7 assists per game. Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers, 3.4 block shots per game. And Jimmy Butler led the league in steals with 2.1 steals per game. And just to quickly run through the playoff scenarios.
Wait, did you say Russell Westbrook led the league in assists?
Yes, Russell Westbrook led the league in assists, 11.7 assists per game.
Wow, doesn't that
it feels weird because we just talked about we just
weird.
spent like 20 minutes last week calling him a ball hog, and then here he is winning the assist title. You and I had a little brief discussion about it. I just think it's about just. I think there's just sometimes, and I hate to admit this.
Is it the quality of the assist? Is that the that's not? I know that's almost an inquantifiable stat.
And I think that's where the eye test comes in, right?
Yes.
When you look at the stats tell you a story, and it's an important story to tell. But the other part of the story is the eye test. How is he getting those assists? When is he getting those assists? Like, it's just there's so many different things to factor in. And when you look at a guy like Russell Westbrook, it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel smooth. It doesn't feel like, another, guy, Nikola Jokic is a, great passer. I think he was top 5 in assists this year, actually. And it just feels different when he's distributing the ball than when Russell Westbrook is distributing the ball. It feels like there's more of a plan with Nikola Jokic, and it feels Russell Westbrook's just going to dribble, put my head down and dribble and just kick it out to someone. And hopefully...
Yeah, and Jokic feels like he has his eye on winning, not necessarily padding his stats.
Or not even that, because there's nothing wrong with Pat. I don't even think that Russell Westbrook is like, oh, I need to get this extra assist. I don't know. It feels like there's no real system with him, and he's just like he'd be that guy if you go play pickup basketball and he's on the court, just amazing, right? You just look, this guy is incredible, but doesn't necessarily translate to wins in team basketball.
Yeah, he's got kind of a Tracy McGrady feel to him a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe, or Stephon Marbury.
Marbury. Maybe a better version of Stephon Marbury.
Yeah.
Not quite as good as Allen Iverson, a little bit better than Stephon Marbury.
Iverson, I don't think that's even close.
So Eastern Conference playoff teams, we have the Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Knicks, Hawks, and Heat. Those are your top 6 seeds. Celtics versus Wizards will be the 7-8 play-in game. And then Pacers versus Hornets will be the 9-10 play-in game. Winner of the Celtics versus Wizards will be the 7th seed, and then the loser of that game will play the winner of the 9-10 games to determine who is the 8th seed. So both the Celtics and the Wizards could be in the playoffs. The West, we have the Jazz, Suns, Nuggets, Clippers, Mavericks, and Trailblazers. Those are your top 6. Lakers versus Warriors, which is very exciting.
It's tomorrow. It's Wednesday night at 10 p.m.
I will be definitely watching that.
Yeah.
Lakers versus Warriors, 7-8 play-in game. And then Grizzlies versus Spurs, the 9-10 play-in game. Once again, whoever wins between Lakers and Warriors will become the 7th seed and almost definitely be a favorite against the Suns, and then who are the 2 seed, and then the loser of that game plays the winner of the Grizzlies and the Spurs to become the 8th seed and play the Jazz. So we could see both the Lakers and the Warriors in tonight. People have a lot of conspiracy theories about the NBA. If there is ever a conspiracy theory, the Lakers and the Warriors will both find a way to be in the postseason.
And honestly, if it's a conspiracy that gets them into the playoffs, I'm all for it, because the playoffs are going to be better with Steph Curry and LeBron playing instead of
absolutely
the Grizzlies or something, or
the Grizzlies and the Spurs.
Yeah. And so what I learned just listening to people over the course of the week is for example, the Lakers are at 7 and they're playing the Warriors, who are the 8th seed. If the Lakers lose, the Warriors advance, but then the Lakers play the winner of the Memphis Spurs game.
Yep.
And then they can still, so they still have they have a second chance to
Mhm.
still make the playoffs despite having lost to the Warriors.
They get a lifeline, basically.
Right. Which they should because they're the seventh seed. And at this, I mean, I kind of get what the NBA is doing. They want to create a little drama down the stretch and not have it set so that everyone just takes the last like week of the season off.
Yeah.
But you're also kind of watering down, having to, it's because then it's like, well, we don't really need to try because as long as we're the top 10, we can still win our way in. So we don't really have, it's just, it feels like you're detracting from someone who actually would be making the playoffs anyway. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not
a huge fan. Not a huge fan. I hope this is just a one-time thing to make up for money that was lost, with the COVID and people not being in there. I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say that is the one thing that made me realize that this is probably not going anywhere is that it's sponsored. It's the State Farm play-in tournament. So as soon as the owners start seeing that cash flow coming in, you can guarantee that we're going to be seeing this again.
And the last thing I'll say about the playoff picture, it stood out to me that neither the Pelicans nor the Raptors were even in the top 10. Because as I was saying to you in the not in the off season, just before we were talking, like, yeah, it's cheapens getting into the playoffs if you're a 10 seed and you're like, hey, we made the playoffs, we're a 10 seed. But it really looks bad if you're not one of the top 10 teams.
Yeah, it's a lot like the NCAA tournament. Like if you are not one of the top, like, what is it now, 68 teams, you need to stop playing basketball. Like, you're just garbage. No one even considers you a real team because it's like, hey man, you have a better. I mean, there's only 15 teams in each conference, and 10 of them have a chance to make the playoffs. Like, what more do you want?
10. And also, like, you look at the Pelicans, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram. The Raptors were in the Eastern Conference Finals
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and they were in the finals 2 years ago, and they were in the Eastern Conference semifinals last year.
That's right.
And to not even be a top 10 team.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to feel like maybe the NBA should just adopt the NCAA bracket for their playoff. I mean, maybe just let everybody play, have a 3-game series, and just see what happens.
All right, so I know we're running low on time. Do we have 5 minutes, or can we make no mistake or give me a break in 5 minutes or less?
Jose, I believe in us. I believe we can do this. Well, we are prone to being long-winded occasionally on this show. That's sort of why we do a sports talk show, because we talk sports incessantly. So let's keep this to a minimum, because you're right, we do have to move on. I lost track of time there. Okay, so make no mistake or give me a break. It's the NBA playoff edition. Would you like to go?
I'll just take it.
I usually say kick or receive, but I don't know.
I'll take the tip off. I'll take the
opening.
Yeah, I'll take the opening possession. The Utah Jazz will be in the Western Conference Finals.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. We don't talk about these ahead of time because
oh no,
because we like to save it for the air, as everyone likes to say in the business. My first, make no mistake or give me a break. The Utah Jazz will make the conference finals.
All right, well that's easy.
That is unbelievable. I'm going to say give me a break. I do not believe in the Utah Jazz. I just think there's too many good teams in the West, and the Jazz, I believe that they have a high floor and a very low ceiling.
Yeah, give me a break. It's all in front of them. They should be able to make a run, but I'm not going to believe in them until I see them. It's been 2 years in a row where they've been ousted in the first round of the playoffs. It's hard to believe something will be different this year until we actually see it.
Yep.
All right, number 2. Both the Suns and the Nuggets will be out in the first round of the playoffs.
So make no mistake, give me a break. Both the Suns and the Nuggets. I'm going to say give me a break. Okay. I believe in the Suns. The Suns, if they get hot, and no pun intended, if the Suns get hot, Chris Paul's leadership can help guide that team, who is unbelievably talented. I mean, Devin Booker could go off for 70 points if he really wants to. And I just think that they're gonna surprise. I'm not sure who they're gonna surprise, but they are gonna make some noise. And they have a bad matchup, whoever they get stuck with. But I just think that they're gonna surprise somebody.
I'm gonna say make no mistake. I think they're both
Wow.
out in the first round. I mean, I've been impressed with the Suns, but they're either getting the Lakers at full strength or the red hot Steph Curry and the Warriors in round one.
See, I just think if they get the Warriors, I think that Devin Booker, I think he could keep up with Steph on on a night
For
to night,
one game on a one game basis,
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yes. In terms of scoring, I think that they each have their, obviously overall Steph's a better player, but as far as offensive onslaught, I think in a one game situation, Devin Booker could easily match whatever Steph can do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're the Nuggets, if you're the Suns, you'd much rather face the Warriors than the Lakers at this point. I just, if I had to make a pick, I think I would pick the Warriors in that series. And then as far as the Nuggets, I mean, they're facing the Blazers in round one. They're already going to be they're already out without Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
I think Damian Lillard is due for a postseason explosion. I just don't see the Nuggets surviving.
That leads me to my next make no mistake or give me a break. Damian Lillard will hit a game-winning shot in the playoffs.
Oh, make no mistake, he's almost definitely going to hit at least one game-winning shot. I think Damian Lillard is going to have an excellent postseason.
I hope so. I really do.
I hope so too. I think it's wishful thinking possibly, but I really like Damian Lillard. I'd love to see him get kind of back to that Western Conference final, or at least make a run even to the second round and make it close in the second. All right, here we go. The Clippers will reach the NBA Finals.
I'm gonna say, give me a break. I don't believe in the Clippers after that abysmal performance last year. I think they're gonna be playing the Mavericks.
Yeah, Mavericks in round one,
and I think the Mavericks have something to prove. I think the Clippers are a better team than the Mavericks right now, but I mean, we've seen Luka work his magic. And even if they get past the Mavericks, I just don't think the Clippers have enough tenacity and perseverance to make it through and get all the way to the finals. I do not see it in the West.
I completely agree with you. Give me a break. I think we saw that they were a bit overrated last year. I can't quite put my finger why I don't see a deep run for the Clippers. I think maybe it's just that Paul George I feel like he's just a little bit too easy to neutralize at times. It just feels like if he's just not... Some players, if they're not hot, they find a way to just get something going anyway. And Paul George just feels like if he's not hot, you're getting 7 points. Like, that's just not going to get it done. And I just don't have a lot of confidence in that roster.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. So my last one, the Brooklyn Nets Big Three will play more than 5 games together in the playoffs.
I'm going to say give me a break. I just don't think they're going to be able to stay healthy. And it's funny, my last one was the Nets will not win the NBA title. And I think it's the same. That's why it's related. I don't think they're going to be able to stay healthy for the entire postseason. And it's a shame because you would hope that they could. It just kind of reminds me of a discussion that you and I had once way back before we had a show about comparing LeBron and Kevin Durant. And I was like, oh, LeBron has 400 more games, but Durant's on pace to surpass LeBron James. But then we were like, but he has to play 400 more games.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that's in the cards right now. And it feels they're just not going to be healthy this year.
I'm going to say give me a break. No, I'm going to say make no mistake in that they will play more than 5 games. I think that they will manage to play the first series all together and everyone be healthy. I think they will make it to the second round and play half of that series together. And then someone, whether it's Durant with, who knows what, or Harden's hamstring acting up, or who knows what Kyrie. I mean, he might take the day off in the playoffs to go do whatever he does when he's not playing basketball. So I think I would take the over on that one, but not by much.
All right.
So,
well, that's everything for me.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got. So make no mistake or give me a break. NBA playoff edition. We can always bring that back. That's fun. It's usually reserved for NFL stuff, but NBA playoffs are here, so those are exciting too. So yeah, that's going to do it. Follow us along, iHeartRadio Podcasting, Amazon Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go to thebenchwarmers.com for all news, notes, information involving yours truly and Mr. Jose Ortiz. This has been Show number 55. It's season 2, episode 5 of the Benchwarmerz podcast. And that'll do it. So for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.